Allah, umdali wetu Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you to another exceptional and beautiful episode. This is Conversations with Soweto Muslim Association. We thank you for joining us, and today we have an exceptional guest of ours who is none other than Tahir Maepa, who's going to be with us and telling us more about himself today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you to Conversations with Soweto Muslim Association.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Mufti, for the invite. I know we've been trying to get this going for a while, but you are a busy man, so it was very difficult to get hold of you. Thanks to Jamila that I managed to get to this point. I'm really grateful, Jamila, for you
Making it happen.
thanking Molana to allow me to be here. Thank you very much. I'm quite. I was saying to them earlier on when I got here is that I was quite impressed by the setup that I'm seeing here, and these are the kinds of things that we need as Muslims, as a growing community. We need to grow with what is relevant out there. And I remember we tried something like this in Winterfeld. I think it lasted 2 days, 3 days. Because, people sometimes they think that these things are easy. They need commitment.
Right,
you can have all the materials and all the equipment, but if there's no commitment, nothing will basically
100%.
come to fruition.
Even if you have all the resources.
With all the resources, I mean, we know of a lot of people, communities and countries with resources, but they can't go beyond who they are because of there's no commitment. And for that, I must really thank you and really congratulate you guys for the work that you are doing. It's really exceptional.
No, Jazakumullah. We are honored as well to have you here. The aim of Soweto Muslim Association is to raise the bar.
No, you have.
We are tired of this mediocre Islam
Yeah.
of the indigenous Muslims and always being apologetic about our things.
Alhamdulillah.
So we are showing that seriousness, of being on that level, and we are very excited to have you. And the main also objective of this podcast is to also expose, exceptional and people who are making an impact nationally in our country or even internationally as Muslims of this land. That's one of the main thing that we are trying to do, so that we can also make a mark. We can also fill the gap that has been there for so long, and somebody has been telling our story the wrong way. And also to expose to our South African people that Islam is not something for foreigners. We are as indigenous as you can think. We are also Muslim and we are following Islam, and Islam has become part of our lives. You are sitting here as a married man with kids. All of those people are following Islam, So I'm very excited to have you. And to kickstart it also, I would appreciate if you were to tell us more about yourself, where you were born and your upbringing and your schooling, your primary and your secondary, from which area you came from, and your elementary studies.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for this opportunity. I grew up in Soshanguve.
Right.
Basically, better part of my life was in Soshanguve, where I was raised by my grandmother.
Right.
And most part of my life basically was in Soshanguve. I went to a primary school called Tabaneng in Soshanguve.
Right.
And then after that, I went to high school in Memezelo, which is just close to Mabopane Station. That's where I did my high schooling. And most of my consciousness to what is happening, what the country is all about, basically happened during the transition when I was moving from primary to high school. That's I always say to people that we were born into activism. We didn't have any choice. You were probably born in the 80s. I was born in the 70s. And the 80s for me, it was when, the political structure of apartheid was near collapse. And more information was coming out in terms of what is happening in the country, the kind of suffering that we're really going through. Because, in our communities, information was confined to where you stay. I'll be staying in Soshanguve, but I'll know little about what is happening in Block K because I'm staying in Block F. That's
Let
how
alone
tight.
Roslyn in Wonder Park going further.
I mean, that was a dream. Going to town in Pretoria, that was a dream of every child as I was growing up. But that's the kind of life that we were accustomed to. Then after my high school, then I went and did studies in business management in a private institution. Then I went to Varsity Rau, now University of Johannesburg. That's where I then did my postgrad there. And then after that,
In business management.
no, in law.
In law, okay.
Yeah, I moved from business because business management was one of those luxurious courses when we were growing up. Because I thought I'll be a bank manager one day, so I must do business management. Then I realized that life is not like that, Then, because of my inclination towards activism, law was the natural progression.
Right.
And because I was sort of involved in student politics, later on trade unionism, then the natural progression was me to study labor law, and that's what I pursued throughout my life. I also part studied. I did my LLB, but didn't finish it, which is something that is part of my things that I need to do just for the sake of it. I don't need it, but I think it's a chapter in my life that I have to finish it because I've got friends that are in the legal field that I work with, people like Mashifani that you interviewed, Smanga Setene and Masha. They're all in that field, and we are a very close brotherhood because of our activities in our lives, in our businesses, and all that. So it's something that I think I should just complete just for the sake of it, and then see what that happens. Then I went and I left the country for a while. I went around 2001, 2002. I went to work in UAE before Dubai was the thing.
Right.
When basically the only major hotel was the what do you call it? Is it Burj Dubai?
Yeah. Burj Khalifa.
Not Burj Khalifa. Khalifa is just
New.
it's new. It was there was only one, the one that they built inside this. I mean that it was a
There was
humble.
nothing.
There was
Yeah,
nothing
there was
basically, and I did mineral export as a consultant for the Sultan of Al Quwain
Right.
for a while there, and that's when my real exposure to Islam that I didn't know. Because when you become a Muslim, you start sort of looking at especially Arabs as a model of what Islam is all about, and for me to be there, to be in the presence of royalty, basically, it was such a big thing. But then when I was there, I saw something else. But what Islam is this? But then I came to understand that Arabs, just like all of us, they're just human beings. They have the same aspiration. They also want to have fun. They also want, but they do it differently from us. I mean, I grew up in social nguve. Fun was fun. You go to a tavern, you dance your life away, and But they were doing it discreetly. But because of one had this perception that they are holy. The Arabs are descendants of the Prophet. They are always in tasbih, but that was not
Quran,
then
fasting.
fasting. They are always. Then I realized
And we
that
get disappointed when you see things.
no, I was hurt. I must say. But what Islam is this? But look, I was
Especially coming from South Africa.
exactly because
Coming from South
yeah,
Africa, you get a shock of your life.
Exactly, South African Islam is the real deal, Baba. So then I came back.
No,
From
my interest, I want to take you back to how you came across Islam.
yeah. So what had happened is that I was raised by my grandmother, a devout Christian, and that's where I got the grounding about spirituality. And our Christian upbringing had nothing to do with Jesus being God. It was about
Linking
being,
to God himself.
yeah, and being a good person.
Right.
Uh,
Until today, we see this from our grandparents.
no, we see it. We see it. And because of that, I went to church every Sunday. During Easter, I was in church from Friday until Monday morning. So that's how I grew up,
100%.
So at least that's spiritual. But one thing that always worried me is the fact that the other segment of Christianity being white, they were using it as a form of a stick against us. And that always troubled me. But I could not get my hands into what is the difference and all that. Because Christianity that we grew up, it was not an analytical Christianity.
Right.
It was a Christianity where you go to church, you listen to
The pastor, whatever he says.
and I can assure you for 10 years, there's 4 verses of the Bible that he always preaches. and that's the kind of Christianity. It was not complex. It had nothing to do with money, these prosperity churches that we see now. It was just serving God.
Right.
So when I went to high school, that's where basically my life took a turn, because then I started getting involved in student politics and all that. And I started questioning these kinds of things. But I can't be a Christian and be oppressed by Christians. Then there's something that is not right. I just could not get my fingers to it. What was the problem? So there is a brother of mine, a good friend of mine, who passed away. That, like, we've been friends since diapers. So when we finished matric, he went to study in Medunsa to do medicine there. That's when I went to do my business studies and all that. So during recess, when the varsities closed and all that, he never used to like going home. So would talk to his friends, and then they would borrow us their rooms, and then we spend the holidays at Medunsa, and what would happen there, the drinking and all those kinds of things. We had fun. We enjoyed ourselves. We were young and everything, but we were also involved in what our people are going through. So in one of these sessions, one day he said to me, "Hey, you know what? Because on Sunday, even if we would be dancing in a tavern the Saturday, on Sunday he would go to church. I wouldn't go to church anymore because I've sort of said this thing is not for me." So one day he said to me, "Hey, since you are no longer interested in this Christianity, let me introduce you to something." I said, "You introduce me to what?" Then he gave me a book by Ahmed Didat. I think the title was The God That Never Was, or something like that. He says, "Why don't you try this?" I said, "But what is this?" I said, "No, Islam." I said, "But you want me to join Indians now? I mean, you want to move me from whites to Indians? It's not going to work." He says, "No, there's very interesting things in these books." Then he kept on giving more books of Ahmed Didat, those small books that Ahmed Didat used to print. So one day, then I was sitting at home, and then I started just going through these books. And I said, "But this must be real propaganda, because this can be true, because comparative religion of Ahmed Didat, it was on another level,
Yeah,
especially during those
during
days.
that time.
Yeah, it was so appealing. It was more like an activism kind of
Different
Islam.
approach.
Completely different. And that is why we still cannot have somebody who can replicate
No.
Ahmed Didat. He was on
I
another level.
was actually recently, a few days ago, I was in Durban. I went to his office for the first time. And, Ahmad Didat was something else.
No, he was
God
special.
sent at that particular time to possess that knowledge of comparative religion and the work that he has done. It's out of this world.
No, it's
Allah yarhamu.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I started reading these things, these leaflets and all that. And for the first time now, I picked up the Bible again, because he was making reference to the Bible, contradictions in the Bible and all that. And all these things that were in his book, I found them in the Bible. I said, my word, this is just unbelievable. Now I started understanding that the Bible in its purity was changed to fit certain narratives. It's not the fault of the Christians. It's the fault of the system that has been created to create this perception that certain people are greater than others. I mean, this is the nonsense that we're seeing with the Jews calling themselves the chosen people and all that. And the white Afrikaners, they were also like, even the British,
Same
all of
mentality.
them,
Right.
same mentality. Then I said, but this is unbelievable. That's when I started digging into Islam, and then searching for information was not easy. It's not like now you go into Google and then a
AI.
million results come. You had to really work hard to get
To access
information.
information.
Yeah.
Right.
Then one day, as I was coming back, because when I was going to UJ, Rao, then I used to use a train. So I would then pass through town to get a taxi to come back home to Soshanguve. Then I decided one day that I'm going to go to Queen Street Mosque and see what is happening there. Then I went in there because now I have an idea about this Islam and all that. Then I went in there. Luckily, when I got there, the person that I meet is a man called Imam Said. Imam Said was one of the students or people who was working with Ahmed Didat. So I had one of those books and I said, look, man, I want to know about this Islam of yours. And I've been reading about it. I've got a few questions. He said, no, come to my office. We went to his office and I took out this book and he looked at it. He says, I'm part of the people who wrote this book. I said, is that so? He said, yeah. So you know Ahmed Didat? He said, yeah, I know Ahmed Didat. I worked with him for many years, blah, blah, before I came here. Then I started going to him, questioning him, not necessarily trying to get info, questioning him, like literally trying to decipher whether this thing is legit or not. And after a couple of months, I was convinced that, you know what, this is where it will resonate with me because of the justice in Islam. Right. Because I think he was also, because he understood that I'm a unionist. His emphasis was also on Muslim activism, in line with the Sirah, what the Prophet had to go through, the fights that Prophet had to fight for humanity as such. And that in itself resonated so much with me that I believed there and there that, you know what, maybe this is something that I need to give a chance. But to cut a long story short, I was introduced to Islam by a Christian, not by Muslims. I just was fortunate enough to have taken it further. Right. And then about 28 years later, here I am.
Subhanallah. Then immediately after, I think that is a very interesting story, of meeting Islam. We have heard, I also believe the same thing. If we were to meet Muslims before Islam, perhaps we might not have embraced the deen. So we are very fortunate to have seen Islam before we meet the Muslim. Because as we are saying, moving to UAE, then you get that cultural shock and you get exposed to different things. With Islam
bayaphuza nabo bayadansa nabo abafazi abagcoke ama-hijab nabo hawu kwenzakalani. But that is the reality, unfortunately, of human nature, and that is why we should never ever associate or put Islam against a human being. Islam is above all of us. We are human and we have our own shortcomings, and just like any other human beings. But we're just fortunate that Allah has put Hidayah in us, and we believe in Him. And with all our shortcomings, we still return, because we understand that we will be accountable for our actions. So we should not necessarily judge per se. We must correct where we can,
100%.
and then move forward.
100%.
And one of the things, Mufti, that I've realized, it required us as Black indigenous Muslims to liberate our Indian brothers, because they are changing. And how did they change? Is because we revolted against the kind of Islam that they wanted to impose on us. We put up with it for a while, and then we realized that, you know what, some of these things, they've got nothing to do with Islam. It's more cultural, and we have a right to choose. I always say to my Indian friends and say, you know what, even if you leave, I wouldn't care, but leave masala tea and biryani. I'll behave. Those are the two things that I will embrace.
That's it.
I
actually tell people
this is how we should live, because we come from different cultures, and those experiences, we must fuse them in as part. This is what the Prophet did. He had Africans. He had people from Persia. He had people from Rome. He never said, like us when we were told that, you are a Muslim now. If your mother cooks, you must. That thing is haram. He embraced all of them, and they found common ground, and based on that, they grew into the community that we are part of today.
No, 100%. But I actually have I always fight also with my Indian friends that biryani, it's not an Indian dish. No. It's a Muslim dish. You go everywhere in the Muslim world. Yes, we love it. And it's not something that we're going to let go any time.
No, it's going nowhere. we know how to cook it anyway.
Alhamdulillah.
But we can find a common ground. We don't have to be on each other's necks. But let's not impose who we are on other people. We must understand that we come from different cultures. I mean, I'm a Pedi from the north of this country. We have our own culture, a very beautiful culture. And that culture, as far as I'm concerned, is not adverse to what is required of me as a Muslim. You understand? But I cannot be told that you must throw away your culture because your new culture is Islam. And you ask yourself, what culture is Islam? Is it Arab? Is it Indian? Indonesian? Is it Chinese? Which one exactly are you referring to? Because that thing doesn't exist. But you can't blame them. That's all that they knew as well. So coming in and revolting against that system has made us to be at peace with one another.
No, 100%. And we are, as we are saying, that once we get that emancipation, then it makes sense even more to us.
Yeah.
And to the people that who are not Muslims to now relate to the Islam now, to say now, okay, maybe it's something that we can perhaps try.
Absolutely.
Right now. So when you're coming back, how do you then take this thing of social justice and becoming part of a union and growing in that?
It's not different from what you are doing here. It's all about commitment.
Right.
You see something as important in your life, and then you act upon it and consistently. I mean, I could have been anything that I wanted to be in life. And I've had opportunities to go deep, for instance, into business. I've had an opportunity to go into politics. I've had an opportunity to go into diplomacy. And all these things, I had to weigh them against what makes me who I am. And I felt that if I were to venture 100% into those things, it will compromise the thing that I love the most. And being a unionist, the beauty about it, I can do anything that I want to advance the plight of the people, whether it be workers or communities. I don't have anybody who's holding a leash on my neck that, comrade, you need to be political correct, for instance. If I want to criticize the president of this country, I will criticize him. And if I want to commend him for something that is good that he's doing, I'll do it without thinking that, I will offend so and so. Why today
Because
are
of
you
my affiliation.
Yeah, why today are you commending him? Yesterday you were criticizing, because I'm an independent person.
Right.
I don't report to anyone. I do what is correct, and sometimes I err. I make mistakes. And when I realize those mistakes, I admit that I made a mistake and I correct it, but I move forward. I don't stay with that mistake or be proud about my achievements simply because of I have this opportunity. We are in this life for a very limited period, Mufti. And this limited period that we have, we should use it for advancement of what is good for everybody. You cannot have a situation where you say you as a person, you are okay, and the rest of the people, it doesn't matter. If we are not going to use our voices, our monies, our abilities to advance what is good for people, then our life are in vain. You are here now. Somebody had to make it possible. They could have taken this money and went to Dubai or give it to a
Do whatever
girlfriend.
they
Do
want,
whatever
yes.
that they want. But they chose that, you know what, I'm going to use this to advance a cause. And not Islam, a cause.
Right.
And that cause will be able to assist humanity moving forward. And that's what we must strive for.
100%. So somebody has to do something.
Yes.
You know, if all of us were to focus on our own personal things, then
We're doomed.
we are doomed. And your love for the people and the workers, particularly, has inspired you to get involved in uplifting the plight of the people, not to be oppressed and to stand, because sometimes you need somebody to stand for you. You need somebody to speak on your behalf. You need somebody. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam actually says, "Ishfa tujar."
Yes.
When you intercede for someone, you are getting a reward. It's not something that
You're not losing
You're
anything.
not losing anything.
Exactly.
You are interceding on someone that is oppressed,
Yeah.
and you are doing it out of love and passion on your own, and at the same time, Allah rewards you.
Yes.
And perhaps it might have been the inspiration for you to then think of getting into real business, perhaps getting involved. If you don't mind to share with us the upcoming of EPSA and your involvement in that.
Yeah. Look, I've been a unionist like through and through. Immediately after finishing a matric, I used to volunteer in the offices of the Black Consciousness Movement. They had an office in town. In that office, they were also hosting a union called SAPS. Then I started also volunteering in that. That's how my love of unionism came about. Then after SAPSU, we formed a union called NUPSO. It's still in existence now. Also operating the public service. Then I had this opportunity to go to the Middle East. I left everything, went to the Middle East, and then came back. When I came back, now I didn't know what to do with my life. I stayed for a couple of months just sitting around thinking, but what must I do? But my love for unionism was still haunting me. But then I said, no, man, let me try something else. Then I went into government. I worked in government for 1 year, 3 months. I said, nah, man.
Is that my thing?
No. The the bureaucracy here is not, you are not free. You have rule books and you must follow those rule books. And I was not tailored that way. Then I left government. In fact, I was recruited by PSA. I was offered a job to say that come and work for us. Then I worked for PSA. I rose through the ranks in the PSA. And then when I left PSA, initially my intention was to go into diplomacy. I had an opportunity to get a position as a diplomat. I was lobbied to say I must consider it. I was going to go through the courses that will then be a springboard for me to go into that. And things fell apart when we ran out of cash in the country, and President Ramaphosa had to close a lot of missions. Now you have a lot of comrades who are unemployed. Obviously the senior guys will always get preference. Right. And I said, no, man, this thing is not going to work, at least not now. Maybe I should try something else. What are the chances that I will compete with the senior guys in the ANC for that position? If money was then all, I could have been maybe a diplomat in Lesotho, one of the smallest countries, or whatever. Those opportunities were there. But then I said, maybe I should go into business, and we started doing some businesses that are still operational. But business is not my thing, because it brings me into conflict with what I really believe in. Because when you are an employer, bro, you have to think differently. 100%. You have to act differently. And with me, I still don't make money in business, because of most of my money, I give it away to the people that I work with. Mm-hmm. And I make sure that I empower those that are with. And those who know me, who have worked with me, can attest to that. Because I think I realized that the plight of an ordinary worker is different from a plight of somebody who owns something. Mm-hmm. We are fortunate to have things. Most of the workers, they need basic necessities. We just want more and more. Because luxuries. Yeah, if you have a Polo, now you want to drive an X1. When you have an X1, but I think X5 will do. That's the mentality. Right. When you have few rents, you always want to move up. You want to move up and all that. And that, for me, I see it as a trap, and I try to avoid it as much as I can. So a few comrades, then they came back to me and said, but why don't you come back into trade unionism? And they said, no, let's try another union. You can lead us, because we are very disgruntled with most of the unions that are currently are big and all that. That's when we launched PSU. I think you were part of. Yes, I think you make dua at the launch of PSU. That is why PSU is this successful. Thanks to your dua on that day. And it was raining, remember? Yeah. And alhamdulillah, PSU is doing
that day, because I have Springs early, and going to Pretoria, but it was worth it. It was worth it.
Alhamdulillah. Here we are now. The union is doing very well. We are growing, but not only growth, we are impactful in what we are doing, and we're trying to do something different, because I've done this work for many years, and this time around I wanted PSCU to be something completely different. It must be a tool that empowers workers, not necessarily to say that we will represent you when you are charged, but to really empower them for their growth and for their families. And slowly we are making inroads into that, and alhamdulillah, we are doing quite well.
No, alhamdulillah, I think we need that, because then we have something that is tailor-made with the ingredients of Islam. Yeah. That not there just to exploit or maybe to take money from you.
Exactly.
Or when you are charged, then we appear. No, we are there. We want to show you something that is different. That we are not to just use your money and run away, or maybe because so many people complain about their unions. It's not helping us. They will agree with the employer and they will do so many things. I just want to ask you. I don't know if this is a relevant question or what. Would you? Somebody said that unionism and anarcho-syndicalism is the same thing.
Look, you can link things according to where you stand
Right.
on a particular issue. Trade unionism, you cannot. There was a time when trade unionism had to do with the circumstances of workers working long hours, being underpaid, and that was the center of trade unionism. That let's have 8-hour working day, 5-day working week, and all that. That was an achievement, and it was confined to that. But as the world evolves, you start realizing that unionism goes beyond that. The workers, they also have families. They also have extended families. They are part of communities. In reality, they become part of a nation. Now, whatever you do as a unionist must tap into all of that.
Yes.
It's no longer about
restricted to this.
Restricted to
Right.
to the work. And I'll give you an example with the PSCU. What we do is that, okay, the workers, they have children. What do we do in order to assist them? Because if they're at work, the children go back home, they need somebody to help them with their homework. There's no one there. We create online platform for tutoring those children. Now, when the member is at work working, the union is still serving the member at home, by assisting the child.
The children, yes.
Most of the workers, they are unable to afford basic necessities like housing. What do you do to make sure that workers have access to decent housing? Those are the kinds of, so that extension goes beyond just workplace politics. You must make sure that when a worker leaves the workplace where there's air cons and all that, they can go into a house that is decent for them to stay with. Because it doesn't help to come from a better place to the worst place, and you think that the society will flourish and it will achieve its maximum potential. It's not possible. 100%. So we are not grounded around only workplace issues. We deal with community issues. We deal with political issues. One of the things that makes us also unique, I can talk to any political party. I remember when we were lobbying for the amendment of the PIC Act, that the PIC must include unions as part of the board of the PIC. I went to ANC, I went to EFF, and I went to DA. And I got that legislation passed. And it was done.
Alhamdulillah.
Because I'm not bound to expediency. I'm not bound to an ideology. I want to do what is in the interest of the people. Yes. And if it means that I have to speak to people that I completely disagree with, I'm still going to do it for
the betterment and the upliftment of the people.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, how would you, in conclusion, due to time, how would you give or package the message of Islam to somebody watching at home, and somebody who thinks that Islam is a religion maybe for foreigners or maybe for Indians? Throughout your experience and your life, what's the best way of packaging the message of Islam to those at home? Perhaps somebody who is not a Muslim who's watching at home.
For me, Mufti, and again, it resonates very well with what I'm doing as an activist, as a servant to our people in my small little way, that Islam is justice. That's all. Islam is justice. Because that's all that we aspire as people? Justice. And what is justice? What does it look like? It looks like you having the basics that everybody else wants, whether rich or poor. We all want to have access to healthcare, for instance, access to housing, education, food. All these things are needed, and Islam guarantees
you that.
people all that without exception, whether you are rich or poor. Then, because once you have achieved that, you have resolved half of the problems of the people, irrespective whether they are Muslim or not. We all aspire what is good for ourselves, for our families, and in extension for the nation. Now, Islam makes that possible as law. It's not an exception. It's not like you can or you cannot. You know, that is why the concept of Baitul Mal existed from the time of the Prophet. What was that meant to do? To look after the downtrodden, the poor, so that they can have the basics. So Islam, to me,
it shouldn't be, the wealth mustn't be for the elite.
Exactly. So Islam, for me, it's all about justice. And I am an ambassador of that justice. And I use my voice, my abilities to advance justice, because of this is what my religion expects of me.
Subhanallah. Mashallah. I think it's very comprehensive how we have explained it. In lastly, I want to ask you how you want to be remembered the day you are not here. What should people think when they think of Tahir Maepa?
I just hope that with all my shortcomings, I'm not a disappointment. And I hope that one day when I'm long gone, I will be remembered of somebody as somebody who did his best, who tried to make this world a better place.
Subhanallah, mashallah. Due to time, we have to conclude because of we have a very restricted time. I also wanted to go to your journey because we have went to the Holy Lands again recently, and I wanted to ask about the spirituality of that. But I hope we can have a second episode with regards to that, because I have so many questions here that I wanted to ask you, but we have run out of time, and we hope, inshallah, maybe out of your busy schedule, we can maybe later on have another segment where we can go deeper into other things as well, inshallah. Jazakumullah for your time, and we hope that you have a very beautiful way forward in life, generally, and achieving so many things. Social justice is what we need today, and we need it from the very true sense of it. Some people will just, play with words and there, but they don't have that real passion for it, And we hope that Allah Ta'ala gives you success, and Allah Ta'ala gives you whatever that your heart desires, and gives you everything that will propel you to even have more resources to stand for our people and uplift the plight of the people. Jazakumullah from at home for watching this episode. We've been with Tahir Maepa in our conversation with Soweto Muslim Association. Till we meet again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.